Hello, everyone. My name is Wolfgang Sell. I am a cybersecurity intern here at the State of Kansas Information Security Office, and today I wanted to talk about endpoint detection and response systems. We're going to go over what the current information security landscape looks like and why it's necessary to have this kind of protection. We're then going to go over what EDR systems are, what they aren't, how they're different than previous solutions. We're then going to talk about how they work. Then we're going to do a risk and benefit analysis of having these systems. And then at the end, I will show you where you can direct any comments or questions you might have for our cyber collaboration and preparedness department. Let's begin. So what exactly is an endpoint? Well, it can basically be defined as a device that is connected to your organization's network. That could be a laptop, desktop, printer that is connected to your organization's Wi-Fi. But some things that people don't think of are things like POS devices used to capture credit card sales, cameras, which are often left unsecured, and various types of internet connected monitors for critical physical infrastructure such as tanks, pumps, and reactors. And modern organizations, we all rely on technology that is connected to the internet in order to save money, make money, and increase efficiency, right? An example of this is Walmart. So every Walmart employee, while they're working, they carry around an endpoint, and that endpoint is actually just a company phone. And that company phone they use to communicate with each other. They can clock in and clock out. They can also help you find where different items are in the store. And this, of course, helps the customer have a better experience and increase efficiency. So it saves money, right? But when you introduce endpoints into your organization, it comes with a trade-off in terms of security. You see, by relying on these kinds of devices, we put ourselves at risk of having our business being disrupted. So when you introduce new systems, you need to also introduce safeguards. And that sets the stage for a sophisticated system that is able to manage the security and reliability of these endpoints, which we're going to go ahead and talk about in the next slide. So when you think of how to secure your network or how to secure your endpoints, the first thing that probably comes to your mind is antivirus. And that's a good first thought. I think it's a very good first line of defense against most types of malware that is known to exist. So things like McAfee, Bitdefender, Norton, and the basic Windows Defender that comes on all Windows computers, that is a good first line of defense to have for your network. And the way it works is it uses signature-based detection. So every file has its own digital signature, and what antivirus does is it compares that digital signature against the signature of files that we know are bad, files that are behind previous malware attacks. However, this doesn't account for more advanced threats. And nowadays, against our public sector, critical infrastructure, and other types of public sector systems, we are seeing a lot more nation-state attacks by advanced threats who use what is known as zero-day attacks to introduce new types of attacks. And what a zero-day attack is, it's a type of attack that has never been seen before. And you cannot account for zero-day attacks with a basic antivirus because it can only compare against known threats. So if a threat is unknown, then the antivirus wouldn't be able to understand that it is a threat. And that's where endpoint detection and response systems come in. So if you look on the top, you can see some EDR systems like CrowdStrike, Sophos, ThreatLocker, Huntress. These kinds of EDRs support what is known as behavioral analysis. So it can analyze the behavior of your computer to establish a baseline of what is normal activity. And if that baseline is violated, it can send an alert or it can take autonomous action against it. So as you can see, and we'll talk more about exactly how it establishes that baseline later, but the main thing to think about is that EDR systems are basically a more holistic antivirus solution for your network. And that is because it supports things like log collection. It can do threat hunting, and threat hunting is basically doing research on the threats that are out there and then proactively searching your system for them. It can analyze the root cause of issues. Of course, it can monitor your system. That's what it's doing constantly. And then you can see exactly what happened in your network that triggered an alert, that's why it took autonomous action, whereas many of these antivirus solutions do not have that sort of capability. So let me show you how it works. So you can think of EDR systems as working in 4 steps. The first step being continuous monitoring. So it is constantly collecting and analyzing your endpoint data. And what that means is it's looking at how many processes you have open, how many failed login attempts there are, what kind of network connections you usually are making, and what kind of apps you have installed, what kind of system files you might be editing usually, and it uses all of this to establish a baseline of what is normal activity on your computer. Now, if that baseline is broken, for example, the CPU usage has spiked in the past few hours, it can make an alert, and then we're sent into the alert analysis stage. This is where the EDR system itself can analyze an alert and decide on action to take, or it can send it to an IT security team who can decide on what action is best to remediate it. So it uses the data that it's been collecting to give insights to the person analyzing the alert. For example, if there's been an attack on systems like this, a new type of attack going on, it uses threat hunting to be able to tell you, the IT security personnel, hey, we've been seeing these types of attacks go on recently, and we see something similar going on in your network. So that kind of data that can drive your response to be quicker and more accurate, right? And then of course it can also tell you which device the issue is happening on. It can tell you what methods it's using. Is it using privilege escalation? Is it trying to establish persistence? Is it trying to execute immediately? Is it just trying to do reconnaissance? And then the scope of the attack, meaning how many devices are being affected, shows you what network they're on, so you can take quarantine or isolation measures, and so on. And the remediation phase is basically what I was just saying. So you need to use the alerts and the analysis you have, and if you set it up in a certain way, it can take automatic action. So if it detects something that's new and it decides to do its own action, perhaps doing its own quarantining or doing its own network segmentation, it can do that, but it can also assist with the manual response. Like I said, if not all solutions can be figured out by a computer, you're going to need some human intuition and expertise, and it can assist with the manual response of complex issues. And then at the end, of course, that brings us to the lessons learned phase, and that's where the EDR system is capable of updating what it's looking for. So for example, if in an attack they try to exfiltrate sensitive data, usually the threshold for detecting whether data exfiltration is happening or not is when network traffic goes around over 20,000 bytes of data. So for example, if that attack has been happening repeatedly, an EDR system might update its algorithm to set an alert at 15 or 14 so that it's not going to be able to be bypassed, right? And then it can also help, because it's collecting all these logs and all this information, and it can also help you generate an incident report, which is important for telling your organization, coworkers or boss what the issue is, what exactly happened, and then you can update your organization's information security posture. So now that we know a little bit about how these systems work, why they're prevalent in our information security landscape, and a little bit about how they work under the hood, I want to show off a little bit about the risks and benefits to using these systems to secure your organization's endpoints. And like I said before, one of the main attractions of using an EDR system is that it can defend against zero-day attacks. And to remind you, zero-day attacks are basically attacks that have never been seen before. So I wanted to help you visualize exactly what kind of risk we're looking at when we see a zero-day attack, why it's important to protect against them using the NIST special publication risk analysis matrix, and that's a matrix of impact and likelihood, right? So when visualizing the likelihood, we can pretty confidently say it's within the probable to frequent range because these attacks are researched about, hackers find out about them, and they don't actually do them immediately. They don't keep it to themselves. They'll go into the dark web and actually steal, or they'll actually not steal, they will sell the information about these attacks online. And when somebody comes around and actually wants to attack your network, they will purchase one of these attacks and then carry them out. So they're very prevalent, especially against government systems, critical infrastructure systems, and against, because a lot of these zero-day attacks are carried out by advanced threats such as nation-state actors. And when thinking about the impact of these attacks, they can be well within the significant to catastrophic range. For example, if endpoints, if, like I said, organizations rely on endpoints for operational success. So if your organization depends on it, if the welfare of your citizens depends on it, it can be extremely significant, any disruption to that service. So we can pretty confidently put this within the probable and significant to the frequent and catastrophic range of risks. So this is really what you're defending against, right? And to remind you, I put at the bottom that the average cost of a breach is about $4.5 million. So it's very significant on the wallet. Now, benefit side to using these systems is that they can help you reach compliance. So when I'm talking about compliance, when you, as a government entity, you are obligated to meet compliance in certain respects if you wish to use certain technologies. So for example, if you decided that for the county hospital that you wanted to start digitalizing patient records so that you can process more patients, you're going to have to make sure the systems that are storing these this database of health records are HIPAA compliant. So that means it needs to be secure by their standards. If you want to take card payments for property tax so that you don't have to pay some cashier 9 to 5 to be at the county building ready to take a check, you can use an online system to do that, but it needs to be PCI DSS compliant, and that's the personal card regulations. If you want to have your public school information system online so that people can access their grades at any time, that has to be safe enough for FERPA. And if you want to have a voting machine, instead of paying somebody to count votes, that machine also has to be secure enough. And my point when saying this is that you can use EDR systems to reach the level of compliance necessary to have these systems up and running in your environment. So it's not just a thing that you have to pay for just to keep secure. It's also a way you can save money and allow yourself to do business in places that you weren't able to do them before. All right, and with that being said, that will conclude my presentation. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please feel free to contact us at our email, kiso.cybercollaboration@ks.gov, or visit our website, which I have linked there. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.